Today, I'm very happy to welcome Abodunrin Roberts. You're an expert in insurance. You have a long experience in the industry, based in Lagos, Nigeria.
Yes.
So first of all, thank you very much for your time today, Abodunrin. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome.
Can you give us first a little understanding of your experience in insurance? What have you done in the past years?
My experience in insurance as an insurance practitioner has been that a lot of people are ignorant about the need for insurance. Insurance itself is a risk financing mechanism. And before people can actually need insurance, there are other things that they need to protect, like buying an assets, life protection, or liabilities that they can actually get trouble with. So if they have those three, and the fear of either losing one's life or losing an asset or getting into liability will then give a rise for the need for insurance. But a lot of people don't see that. And there's a need for a lot of education to ensure that people understand why insurance is important in their lives. Insurance is not only for rich people or those who are wealthy, it's actually more for those who cannot afford to lose assets and who will find it difficult to replace those assets if they lose them. What I found most is that you need to have more education so that people will be much knowledgeable about what insurance provides.
Today, the topic is about sales, selling insurance,
Yes.
and how it is in the markets that you know. I'd like to start with a first question. What would be your advice for a newcomer to sales in insurance or in general, but mostly in insurance?
Okay, well, what I would advise is that for sales in general, first and foremost, you need to do a background research on who your prospects are. You need to understand their business. You need to understand the risks inherent in their business. And then you need to also be able to then see where there could be losses if there's an unfortunate incident. Once you understand their business and understand the risk exposures in their business, you can then be able to sell insurance to them, because the insurance you're going to sell to them will be peculiar to the areas where you see that they are exposed. In case there's a loss, they can then use insurance to augment whatever loss that occurs. So with that, the sales will be targeted. Your prospect will understand that you understand their business, and then will be happy that the solutions you're giving them is peculiar to specific risk areas that their business offers. So for me, really, understanding the client is very, very important. And of course, understanding the business and the risk exposures is what I would advise any salesperson to do first before approaching any organization or any client that you want to sell insurance.
So your first advice is really know your clients.
Yes.
Do you have a second tip for a newcomer in the industry?
The newcomer who wants to sell insurance must understand the way insurance works. What is insurance? What are the principles of insurance? Then what are the risk exposures that insurance is meant to mitigate, right? Because that is actually key. Every industry has their own peculiar risks. Now, every insurance product is a risk financing solution to peculiar risks in each peculiar industry. It's important that you understand the industry, you understand the exposure, and then you understand the product that you're about to sell. It's not just about barging in, trying to sell the product without understanding the needs of the client. So first and foremost, understand the industry, understand the needs of the client, and then understand the solutions that fit into the needs of the client. Those are the three key things I'll tell any new person that wants to come into the insurance industry.
I like very much what you're telling us, because basically the word you use the most is not selling, but you say understand
Yeah.
the product.
Yeah.
Very interesting, Abodunrin. Now, what are the most common mistakes that young salespeople or salespeople in general do when they sell insurance?
The common mistakes they do is without actually finding out the needs of the client. So what they do is that you represent an insurance company. The insurance company gives you products to go and sell, and then you just walk into somebody's office, and then you have all your products and you're trying to sell the products. However, the first thing you should have done is to find out what are the needs of this particular client, so that out of the array of products that I have, I can then pick out the ones that speaks to the need of the client. I normally use this example. We all go through different stages of life, from when you're a bachelor to when you are married with young children to when you're advanced and when you become retired. At every stage of your life, the risk exposure is different from other stages. So if somebody comes to you at a stage where you just have a young family, you know that your concern at that time will be school education for the children, school fees, rents, holidays. Any marketer or any salesperson coming to you should have actually analyzed your position and then be able to bring products that speak specifically to those needs, rather than just coming to say, oh, okay, come and buy this and all that. So the first mistake is that we don't have enough knowledge of the clients that we're selling to. The second mistake is that in most cases, okay, when the client is saying no, the salesperson usually just assume that he's not being persistent enough, not knowing that really, maybe he doesn't speak to the needs of the client. So the salesperson continues to knock on the doors and engage the clients, and then we start getting the clients irritated, and the client will start avoiding him. Instead of him to find out, okay, what exactly is it? I'm not speaking to the minds of this client. What do I need to do more to ensure that that actually occurs?
Valuable insights there. Now, once you understand the client and you keep going at it in a proper way, it's inevitable that some of these clients will turn you down. They will say, no, thank you to your offer. Now, how do you keep motivated when you get 10 no's one after the next?
Okay, well, every no should be an experience for you. For me, you should document the process as a learning experience. You should actually appreciate a no, because it means that by the time you're going to the next client, you know what not to do. So every no is an experience for you. And then you should convince yourself that the time is probably not right for that particular client to take that policy. There will still be other opportunities. So what you need to do is to go back, do more research on that client. And then once you have more research, you can then look at when the client may need to buy your product. Saying no does not mean that you should be discouraged. And then the third thing I would also advise is that keep that client as a low-hanging fruit, because that's what will keep you motivated. That, yeah, I may not have sold now, but this client, I've already had the contact. I have details of the client. So it's going to be one of my quickest sales when the time is right. And then do a lot more research on the client. The no for now does not mean that it's a no forever. It just gives you an opportunity to do a lot more research on the client, so that when you come back more prepared, more knowledgeable, more product specific, to be able to then attack the basic needs of the client.
I understand from you that these no's basically actually strengthen you, because you do more research and you get to know the client more, and it drives you that way. But do you have a tip for someone who's going to get 10 no's in a day? Of course, you remember what Abodunrin says. Okay, that's an opportunity to know more, but still, it's quite difficult. So do you have a little tip for people who sell, how to manage that emotionally? I have sold myself, and I have to admit, after a day where you have 3-4 clients saying no, 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 I would get quite tired, or I would get like, oh my God, it's never going to end. It's never going to change. What should I do?
Now, on a day where you receive a lot of no's,
yeah.
Well, for me, really, I think it's an opportunity to sit down and reevaluate your process and look at how can I do things differently? Because that is always key. What has changed? How can I do things differently? And how can I approach another client differently? We'll keep on improving once we're able to evaluate. You see, in most cases, we don't evaluate before we move on to the next sale. But at every opportunity, you sit down, analyze what the client has told you, whether it's positive or negative, evaluate it, and ask yourself how you can do it differently. And then eventually, you will see an approach that will open the doors for you, and that will be the key. But without evaluating, you probably may not get there.
I hear this as a lot of wisdom. I have to admit, for me, it was quite a challenge to go through that, but I'll keep this in mind for the next no's. Yes. Okay. Now, some people say, well, look, you're born a salesperson, but do you think that selling is about talent, method, process, or simply luck?
What I would say to that is that sales is a method and a process, right? And the issue with sales is that the first thing you never do is that you should never generalize your clients. You should never assume that all the clients you need have the same needs. The second thing is that, look, selling, apart from the process and the method, is complemented by intuition and personality. There's a saying that you sell yourself first before people buy your product. So you must put your personality in a position where the person you meet will want to buy you first before they can then listen to what you have to sell, right? So, and then selling is about also knowing your clients in and out. Just like I said, you want to get involved with your client. You want to know what kind of lifestyle does he live? What kind of family does he have? So that the essence of all that, what are his needs, even for his own business? The essence for all that is that you can then provide solutions in terms of sales and put him in on the process where he can also make income for his own business as well. So he sees you as a valuable partner rather than a salesperson. It's about actions that you take every day to ensure that you succeed. But sales for me is a method and a process, and once you're good at it, you continue to improve it to ensure that you succeed all the time, or most of the time, as the case may be.
I take it as a very positive, encouraging sign. This means more method and process than actually a talent. Keep working at it and do the job you have to do. Now, with the COVID and the very fast digitization we have experienced in the past year, has anything changed? Are we doing business the same way as we were doing before COVID?
What has changed first is the physical engagement. What COVID had brought is that a lot of people cannot meet face-to-face anymore. What we're used to is a networking opportunity where you attend an event, either a cocktail or a conference, and you meet someone there, you get an acquaintance, and then you follow up from that. COVID changed that because we're all locked up for over a year. So there was no social, physical networking anymore. The new thing that has come is digitalization of the new channel of delivering service. Now, what I always say is this: the focus of sales has not changed. But what has changed is the channel of delivery of that focus. The focus is, I have a product, I have a solution, I want you to buy my solution, I want you to buy my product, which is still the end result. But before COVID, I would have come to you physically, to your office, have a meeting, do my presentations, we then agree next steps. But now I can't come to you physically. I have to use a different channel to still achieve my aim of you buying my product or buying my solution. So it's the channel that has changed. The channel has now gone virtual rather than physical. What I need to do also is to change my strategy. How can I get access to you via virtual means? How can I then do my presentations to you on virtual means? So I need to look for sources of virtual conferences or virtual engagements, and then follow up by mails or do my presentation virtually, wherever you are, anywhere in the world. That also brings an advantage because now I can access you without being physically there. So the new channel that has come has brought its own limitations and at the same time brought its own opportunities. So it's left for me to also change as well to be able to take advantage of those opportunities.
That sounds very encouraging. Now, just if I can pick your brains on something, you know the Nigerian market very well, obviously. How has it specifically reacted? Has it changed a lot as you were describing? You're not going anymore to clients?
In Nigeria, you have clients that you already have that you then need to either request for referrals from or you provide services to. And then you have prospective clients you're trying to engage. The market first was in shock. Not being able to go to the client's offices, they didn't know what to do. But gradually, the market started using a virtual communication internally first, and then saw that this is an opportunity to use the same platform for external engagement. You go to a conference, a webinar, and then get a list of the attendees and their contacts. You then send a mail to those attendees and say, okay, I have this product I would like to request for a presentation. Then they agree timing, and then you prepare your presentations and doing online presentation to the client, and then you agree next steps. The market had embraced that channel and continue to then use it. Now the market is also now more on social media, using all the channels of social media as marketing tools, also developing content about risk exposures, educational materials, to can then send out to clients and prospects for them to engage those customers so that they can then also, in case they have any need to make some inquiries, we have the market to then present details for them to come back and use that opportunity to then engage them. So the market had to also change and use that platform to do the same thing. One of the things that we are also doing is to ensure that instigate your own webinars. For instance, you focus on a particular risks, and then invite people to the webinar. And the essence of that is that you then get a pool of prospective clients that you can follow up with on proposals after the webinar. So by the time you do 3-4 webinars in a specific area of risk, the attendance of that webinar will be your potential clients. And then all you need to do is follow up with specific presentations that speaks to those risks.
Now, you've been working in this industry for a little while. Do you have any role models in the industry or in sales?
Wow, this is a great question. The easiest person I would say is my role model is a well-known Nigerian billionaire, which is Dangote. Why is my role model is that he never stops at a particular solution. He moves on from one to the other. He keeps on reinventing himself and see the opportunities and go after them. He went from sugar to rice to cement. Now he's doing oil and gas. So for me, that's a grand salesman. There's nothing he can't sell. And he's been successful at it at every point. For me, that would be my role model.
What makes him different? Why is he able to go from one industry like this to another?
I think what makes him different is that he's very good at identifying the needs, identifying the gaps, and seeing where there's a need for solution. And then he goes looking for that solution and putting that solution on the table. That's what I want to borrow from him. The solutions we sell are actually to mitigate certain needs that are available in the market.
Inspiring. One question we often get is, I think you aimed at that a bit earlier. How do you find clients?
How do you find clients? For me, clients are all around you. Even from your own immediate family, they're all your clients. Because really, they go through the same things that you go through. Your brothers will buy a car, your brother has a wife, your brother has children, has a house. They're your first point of clients. And then you can go from their own network to other people's network. So clients are all around you. It depends on what you see or how you see the needs of the people around you, honestly.
I like your optimistic way of saying it. Clients everywhere around you.
Yeah, honestly.
This. Do you have any general advice for salespeople?
For me, what I've realized with sales is that what we sell is knowledge, right? So my general advice would be, if you are selling to a particular sector, you must have basic knowledge of that sector, because that is what you'll be selling. If you have a knowledge of a manufacturing sector and you are going to the manufacturing company, you must tell that manufacturing company, I know your processes. I know that there's an exposure here. I know that you have blowouts with certain machines, and I know that certain machines has certain lifespan. You need to protect them. So I recommend sector-based training. I'll recommend whatever you're selling, your solutions-based training, whatever it is that the sector that you're selling to. I recommend the fact that you need to have an understanding as a salesperson that insurance is a risk financing mechanism. Just like the bankers provide funds for trade, insurance provides finance for when you have a loss. So you must understand it from that perspective. That's the only time you can then be able to give an understanding to who you are selling to. I also want to recommend that you will need to understand that new age requires collaboration. A salesperson needs to know that, look, you need to collaborate. So you probably need to go through an aggregator sometimes, seek out aggregators who can give you a number of prospects in a location. That is easier for you to be able to show them that, look, this industry, I have a basic understanding and I can provide solutions to your problems.
Thank you very much. How do you see the Nigerian market at the moment and the years to come, if you could take a wild guess?
Well, for me, the Nigerian insurance market is not developed yet. It's underdeveloping, because really, we always say that we are only contributing about 1% to the GDP of the economy. So that, for me, although it's not developed, but it's also a lot of opportunities in that regard. Because if you can only take it to 5%, then you know that you'd have actually achieved a lot, right? So there's a need for capacity to be able to then absorb more risks so that you can then have premiums to develop the market. There's a need for knowledge in special areas like aviation, like marine, like cyber, like oil and gas. Those are specialist areas. Where the knowledge is not here, we have to sometimes then send most of those risks offshore to ensure that we get the best. Development in that regard will be required. And the same goes for the West African market as well, because Nigeria is the biggest market in West Africa. So really, once something is lacking in the Nigerian market, you should know that it affects the West African region as a whole. The market finds it difficult to attract talent into its industry. So majority of the talents rather go to other financial services or the telecom sector or the oil and gas sector. So that has been an issue for the market. These three areas define both the Nigerian market and the West African market as a whole.
It seems to me that it's a great opportunity, actually.
Yes. Technology is also important. Technology is now the new channel of delivery. And if that is able to come to Nigeria, to be a major success.
Well, I think we're nearing the end. I found this discussion extremely interesting and getting your views on sales, insurance, and the market.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be part of this.
All right, Abodunrin. Thank you. Have a good one.